things. But Christopher is the founding member of Assistive Technology Team for Loudoun County Public Schools. Chris co-hosts the Talking in Tech podcast featuring interviews and conversations about augmentative and alternative communication, and has hosted the AT Tips Cast, a multi-award-winning podcast featuring strategies to design educational experiences. Chris is the author of The New Assistive Tech, Making Learning Awesome for All, published by the International Society for Technology in Education, and that's ISTE. Chris is the co-author of Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year, and the Practical and Fun Guide to Assistive Technology in Public Schools, both which are also published by ISTE. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that. He has a whole lot of other credits to his name, but one of the things I want to say about Christopher and Beth, they both co-authored, the 365 for inclusive practices, something or another in that. But anyway, they are passionate, not just about special education teachers learning, but they're passionate about the general education teachers learning about our special needs students and including them in the classroom. And as you heard from our panelists from lunch, they want to work. And so what he is talking about right now, if we can get a picture of his little robot, is demystifying coding. And this is a pathway to employment for everyone. And our panelists, they want to be employed just like everybody else. So I thank you, Christopher, and welcome, Christopher Bugaj.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So this is the QR code and the URL, bit.ly/coding4work. And the QR code should take you to the slide deck as well. The way this session is going to work is that we're going to talk a little bit about coding. I'm going to show you some different coding tools. I'm going to hopefully demystify it for you, meaning live stream. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of empty seats in here, right? Because there's this, right? Right? I had to grab people in on the way to populate the seats because you're scared of coding, right? There's this vision of like when you hear someone's a coder, like the room is dark and their fingertips are covered with Cheetos and they're like, I code, right? And that's not it at all. I mean, it could be, maybe, but by the end of this, my hope for you is to go, oh, that's what it, oh, I could do that. And oh, I see how somebody could start down the path of learning how to code to eventually get a job working in computer science. That's my goal in the next hour. I'm also, a secondary goal is to have you play with some of the tools that I'm going to show you. That everything I'm showing you today is either free or very low cost. Like the robot here is about $150. And I don't make any money off selling these robots, right? I work for a public school. Like I don't, it's just, you're actually going to hear me advocate that you check out. In fact, I just talked to Nick over there. Nick, right? He's the tech guy that works at this middle school. It's like, hey, you guys have any robots? He's like, actually, yeah, we do have a teacher that uses these robots. They're the Sphero robots. And I was like, think I could borrow them? He's like, oh, I'm not sure where she put them. It's like, okay, don't worry about it. My point being is, it's very likely that you in your schools already have robots like this. This random school that I came to today, the school that we're sitting in, has robots, right? It's very likely that you also have robots in your schools. You just didn't know it, right? So that's why I say it's pretty low cost, because you might just have to ferret it out, find where they are. All right, did everyone get the URL? I was sort of vamping there for a second, so you can get all the slides and be able to click on all the links and everything. Okay, this is your moment, last chance. Got it, live stream? Everyone in live stream good? You got the slides? It's easier in live stream to get it, actually. All right, here we go. So, yep, there's my contact information. And this first starts with, if you were there at lunch, a live stream, I don't think you were there at lunch. We had a panelist of 3 AAC users. And one of the themes of the conversation at lunch that came out was, don't put limits on people, right? There's actually an article written about this called The Least Dangerous Assumption, which was written by Ann Donnellan and expounded upon by someone named Cheryl Jurgensen. Essentially what it says, this doctrine, this article says, when you don't have enough clinical information, choose the least dangerous option, make the least dangerous assumption. So the 3 AAC users there on the stage that we saw at lunch, would the least dangerous assumption be that they could never learn language? Oh, they'll never be able to do that. Or that they could learn language, right? What's the least dangerous assumption to them? That they could learn language, right? So that's the least dangerous assumption. Let's just look at a couple real quick, right? All people have different talents and skills. Is that true or false? True. It's like the least dangerous assumption is that all people have different talents and skills. Intelligence is not a one-dimensional construct. What essentially that means is you can't just take an IQ score and predict everybody's future based off their IQ score. Is that true? Right? It's much more to a person and their life's experiences than just an IQ score. So that's another least dangerous assumption, is that you can't just base it all on intelligence. And then the last thing here, and it says children learn best, but what if it said people learn best when they are valued, when people hold high expectations for them, and they're taught and supported well? Is that a true statement? Yeah. Again, is that a least dangerous? Right? So these are some of the principles that they talk about in this article about the least dangerous assumption. And I like to share it because it was quintessential in me becoming who I am and presenting in my work, thinking no one taught me this. So I did have this different perspective about disability until I learned this. Like, oh, I didn't think they would be able to. Well, it's our job to show kids that they can, right? And not put limits on them. I had to learn that over time. So I'd like to talk about it in sessions, right? Universal means everyone. What part of your universal do you not understand? Yeah, but not those kids. It can't be done. Well, if you believe that what I'm about to show you today with coding can't be done, then you'll be right, because you won't even try it, right? That's why I'm so excited for, yes, we have some empty chairs. I'm excited for the people who are here, that came here, because you're the ones who believe right now. And then the idea is to leave and go back and show other people about coding and help them expand their horizons and thinking that we are not putting limitations on anybody. All right. So are you with me? Anyone can learn how to code. That's the bottom line. And you think so? I'm not convinced you yet, but I'm getting there, right? I can see the skepticism in your eye, right? It's up to us to believe that they can. Just another thing, this is not just me waxing poetical here. There's some actual science behind this. Have you heard of the Pygmalion Effect? Right, this is a great YouTube video to go back and watch. But what the Pygmalion Effect is based on the work of a person named Rosenthal. What Rosenthal did is Rosenthal took 2 sets of rats. Okay? 2 sets. Have you heard this?
Yeah, that was a test question one time.
It was a test question in,
Yes,
what's the name of your school?
Montevallo.
Montevallo. Okay, so don't give away the answer.
It was.
Let's see what you remember from the test. Okay, so Rosenthal takes 2 sets of rats. And thing is, they're not really 2 sets of rats, they're the same rats. Okay. He puts them in front of a maze. The maze is exactly the same. Okay. And then he says to the grad students or whoever's measuring the rats, I don't know if they're grad students, I might be making that part, doesn't matter. Someone measuring them says, let's measure how fast the rats get through the maze. Okay. All the variables are the same except one. These are smart rats, and these are the not smart rats, but they're the same rats. He just lied, right? Which rats got through the maze faster? Right, and they're not smarter rats. They're just labeled smarter, and so they were not even any language involved. Just believing that these rats were smarter got them through the maze faster. So what does that apply to? Hopefully that's giving you chills a little bit. Like I said, what does that apply to our actual humans that we work with? Right, is that the Pygmalion Effect says is that we impact the outcome based on our beliefs. So we have to believe that they can learn language, or they can get a job, or that they can code, right? So I haven't convinced you yet that anyone can learn how to code. I believe other people can learn how to code. I'm not sure about me. Yeah, no, I'm going to show you. You're going to code before the end of the day.
But I don't know if my tech person at school will allow me to teach my kids how to code.
Oh, Sheila, do you mind running around with the mic because live stream can't hear you? Yeah.
I don't talk very loud.
So I believe I can learn how to code. I believe I can teach my kids how to code. But every time I try to tackle a new tech thing with my district, I usually hit a stumbling block.
I'm going to show you some stuff today, free, so that, hey, you don't even have to flip any switches. It's all free. It's all safe, right? So hopefully that will show you. Okay, so you have to believe they do. They can believe they can what? Well, these are the ISTE standards that publishing. So I do have a relationship with this organization. They publish my books. But these are the standards saying that these are what when kids graduate school, any kid graduates school, this is what we'd like them to be able to do. Be awesome digital citizens. Look at this poster right here. It's up in the school. Being a knowledge constructor, innovative designer. We won't go through all of them. Point is, they can learn how to live and exist in a contemporary society, right? And contemporary society has computer science and coding as part of it, right? A simple way to remember those digital standards, because look, that's a lot of fancy words. Empowered learner, global communicator is the C's. We want kids to be effective communicators, effective collaborators, creative, critical thinkers, and then contribute, right? Contribute back to the society that they live in. Fair? Okay. Okay. Get the picture? Did you get it? Okay. Awesome. Okay. So let's focus on that contribution part. Okay. What did kids miss most when school shut down? Remember that day, March 12th, 2020? And they learned they're not coming back to school tomorrow, right? And we go into emergency distance learning. Kids are out of school. What did they miss the most? You can use the QR code, but let's just talk about it real quick. Friends, other kids. If you were to click on this link, you'd see socialization. The answers you just gave are the answers I hear all the time. And so here's what I would say to you. If that is the case, if that's what they missed most when school closed down, then we didn't need to bring back schools. We just needed to bring back pizza parties and slumber parties, right? No one ever says, oh man, they missed their science lesson. Oh man, you know what they really missed was coming to that English class, right? So I want us to be thinking, why would kids want to come to this awesome library that we're in? Like, why would they want to come to this middle school in the first place? Well, see their friends, okay, but beyond that, what can we do in this space? What does this space have to offer that their home doesn't have? Maybe some collaborative learning. So kids nowadays, they'll figure it out on Discord or, there's text messages, certainly Zoom and Google Meets, but there's something about the in-person learning, right? I think that's what you're getting at, right? In-person learning. Okay, yeah. So in-person, Curious, sorry, running around with the mic. Yeah, I'll repeat what they say, right? So curiosity, but certainly kids are curious. I bet you've been curious and you Google something at home, right? So what is it about being here, like, that would satiate that curiosity? Hands-on. Hands-on. All right. So I might want to be building something with my hands, which again, I could do at home, but there might be something here that my home doesn't have.
Access to all of these awesome resources that are here. Like, I just want to live in that fantasy section of the library right there.
Right. The school has actual stuff that you don't have at home. How many of you have robots at home? One. You do, but, well, you have this robot because you've come to my session. You have like a toy Wally, okay? And Jason, what do you have? Oh, what's a Vex robot? Okay, so but that's part of your school stuff, right? You didn't get it on your own, like. Yeah. Because are you like the Vex coding person at your school? STEM guy. The STEM guy, right? Okay. The other people that have said they have robots at home, do you know what they are? Well, Alexa's sort of like a robot.
Actually, she's in the trash can.
The vacuum cleaner.
Like a robot
The robo vacuums, right? Exactly. Guess what? That company, iRobot, has a free coding tool that I'm going to show you And they have a whole educational version of that robot as well, which I had to fly here, so I wasn't able to bring it. But I have pictures of it, and you're going to explore here in a second. Point being is, why should kids come here? Not because adults tell them to. I want to be here because that's where the robots are, man. That's where the books are. That's where the fun stuff is. Most people don't have robots at home, so I want to come to that space. Yes, to be with my friends. Yes, to satiate my curiosity. Yes, to collaborate on stuff, but on the physical hands-on stuff that I can't have at home. Right? All right, so with that in mind, now have I gotten you excited about, yeah, maybe kids coming to school and learning how to code and play with some robots? Okay. Right. Another example, by the way, I know you had to choose between this and the 3D printing session. But 3D printing is another thing. Most people don't yet have 3D printers at home, but they do have them at schools and libraries. So that'd be another thing. Let's come here and make stuff together. Right? Okay. So robots are in schools. Like I said, they're hidden away in your cubby holes. Try and find them. You don't have to spend a lot of money to buy robots necessarily. Okay. So one last thing, besides all of that, we're in Alabama, yeah? Does Alabama have computer science standards? Yes, they do, right? But most people don't know that. Is that fair, Jason and Sheila?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Most states do have computer science standards now, which meant they're just the standards, just like English standards and math standards and other. Virginia was the first state to have them, and then everyone followed after that, right? Because we recognize that computer science is part of the future, right? So even if all of my selling didn't work, the state's telling you should be doing computer science. And if you went to Beth's session earlier talking about emergent literacy, something we could easily say about students with disabilities, particular groups of students with disabilities, is like, oh man, we should have been teaching them to read too? You mean we have to teach them to read? Yeah, we got to teach them to read. So let's not get behind with computer science, right? Let's not be, well, these kids get to learn computer science and coding, and these kids, well, they'll never be able to learn computer science and coding. Let's not make the same mistake we did with reading, right? Let's get on that right now. Are we good, live stream? Are you with me? We're going to teach everyone coding and computer science skills. All right, I have some Jamboards that you can put some, if you want to do something, if you don't feel comfortable sharing verbally, there's other options here to put your ideas down. Just click on the Jamboard live stream. If you want to put stuff in the Jamboard, we can check it later. What I really want to get to is demoing you some of this coding, right? And the way I'm going to do that is with Star Wars. With me? Want to learn some Star Wars? So this website is called code.org. And they have all of these different free coding games and activities. Look, there's even one I just saw today, Exploring AI. Right? That's new to me. But here's one on Star Wars. Right? Notice that there's block coding and JavaScript. JavaScript is text-based. Block coding is essentially puzzle pieces. And we're going to start with that because I can see you're a little bit scared about the coding, and I'm meant to break down that fear, right? So here's what, just let me turn it up. The volume. Oh, maybe I have the volume turned up. It doesn't matter. It says, over here, most coding programs work the same way. There's some sort of area, okay, where the things move around. And then there's some sort of canvas where you drag things to put them in order to make the things move around. So here we have Ray saying, we need that scrap metal, BB-8. Can you get it? Okay. And so when you hit the run button, BB-8 is going to move to the right. So when I hit run, did he get the scrap metal? No. Okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to move over here? Talk me through it. How do we fix it so BB-8 actually gets the scrap metal?
You run it again so you can see where the problem is.
How many spaces? So you see there's like a grid here and it moved right 1. But what it really needed to do is move right 2. So what do we drag over? move right. I'll just drag that over. And now when I do it, very basic coding, all right? Very basic. It's like you completed puzzle 1. You ready for the next one? And you'll see it says, let me show you the code. This is how you type it out if you were doing JavaScript, right? All they did was make it a little more visually appealing by making it puzzle pieces, okay? All right, let's try the next little challenge, okay? Let's go to challenge number 2 here. Okay, BB8, we need more scrap metal. Can you get all the metal in this area? So it's here and here. What do we have to drag over? When I hit run, it's going to move right. What do I do next? Yeah. You want it to move down? Oh, you say move it to the right again first? So move right, move right. Down. Now move down once, move down. Is he going to turn automatically? What do we think? Is there a turn command? You got to move down twice. I got it. Right. You just did it, right? Correct. Okay. And then you could go to the third one, right? But all we did was do, this is block coding, where there's some commands that you're dragging over and you're putting things in order. Right? And if you put things in the wrong order, then it's not going to do things. It's not going to do what it's going to do exactly what you told it to do, but it's not going to do what you expected it to do. Does that make sense? You with me? So that's block coding. That's Star Wars block coding. There's Minecraft, there's Frozen, and it gets progressively more difficult. Just like, do you remember learning to type? And you just learned where ASDF, 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 and you learn those, right? But then now you eventually can type anything. Well, as you progress, it gets more and more difficult, and it gets more and more complicated, and there's more and more turns, and it adds more and more functions over here for you to learn how to do, but incrementally so that you can learn how to do it. Cool. Okay, so that's Star Wars. That's block coding. Any quick questions about that?
I was just going to say, you're also teaching direction. Teaching sequence. And
Oh my goodness. I'm going to repeat it. She said you're teaching directions and you're teaching sequencing. Yes. What else is that sort of like?
teaching the curriculum.
Susan? Sarah. I knew it began with an S. Sarah. It's, what is it?
Teaching language.
It's teaching language, right? When I put words in a certain order, they mean something. And if I change that word order around, it means something different. It's coding, right? When your code is broken, it's called debugging. When your language didn't work, it's a communication breakdown. But it's the same thing. Like we are, this just makes it a little bit more visual, right?
Also, I think work ethics.
A work ethics skill. Tell me more. Sheila, can you give him the mic?
So a lot of times with businesses, they say, hey, I can teach anybody to do the job, but I can't teach them the soft skills. So find me somebody who can stay off the phones. Find me somebody who can pass the drug test. Find me somebody who can get along with everybody, who can follow directions. So those types of skills, it teaches them those. Yeah.
Well, okay. You know what I think goes really along with that is if right now we were sort of doing it as a community, but can you imagine two students working together doing this Star Wars together and be like, that didn't work, man. Why didn't that work? Well, because you did that. Oh, okay. And you build up the tolerance for why someone made a mistake, and it's working on those soft skills that you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So that is Star Wars. Leveling up from that quickcode.org, Scratch is probably what's used most frequently in schools. Jason, you're not using Scratch. You said you're using Python, right?
Right. Scratch or code. Scratch or code.org is inaccessible to our students who are blind and a large part for visual impairments as well. So no, we don't use these.
You don't use it.
But to your Star Wars, we have adapted a quorum programming to Obi-Wan hour of Cody. So yeah, we're not above a pun.
Yes. Well, okay. So Scratch, would you still agree that it is popular in schools, even though you're not using it?
Ridiculously popular. We
Yeah.
wish we could use it.
Yeah. this is good feedback for MIT that developed it, that if they had developed it with accessibility in mind, right? Okay, so Scratch is built on the same idea though with block coding, where you're dragging pieces over and putting them in order. And guess what else is built that way? The coding apps that run the robots. So rather than we just did BB-8 for Star Wars, imagine dragging little pieces together and saying this to go 2 spaces and turn right. Right? And it just works on Bluetooth, the same way your phone works to your radio in your car. That's how it connects to the robot. So you can drive around that way. Cool. Right? And you're going to come up and play with it in a second. Okay. Okay. So in a second live stream, go over to Scratch or go over Hour and Code. You can play because they're about to play with a physical robot in the room. I want to show you a couple others. Jason, last night I added Quorum. I went and looked it up because Jason and I were talking and I was like, yeah, we don't really have a lot of good, we have Code Jumper and then there's this. So I added it to the sheet, but these are other tools that you could go and learn about that are all free to go and check out, right? And I want to show you one more before we get into, you were talking about, Beth and I were talking about Bebots. Is this the Bebots you were talking about, right? So these are hard plastic robots with physical buttons that you push rather than driving it around on a screen or moving puzzle pieces around. You're actually pushing physical buttons to move. But there's an emulator for this. This is the Bebot online emulator. So notice over here that there's our Bebot, and this is a mat. Okay, you can choose different mats like driving around the community or whatever, right? I'm going to go back to the alphabet mat. Okay, so what's your name?
Shelby.
Shelby with an SH.
Yes.
Right. So if that means I have to, if I was going to program your name, how would I get to the S, Shelby?
Start with the S. Oh, you have, where's the,
Look at these
Cursor.
directional.
wait, where am I supposed to, where's it start at?
Right here, this Bebot.
Oh, okay, so you have to move down.
So, oh, okay, interesting right there, because you're going to go this way, but I bet other people were thinking it was this way, right? Who's right, Shelby? Doesn't matter. You just learned there's different ways you can code things. Right. Okay, so down 1. Okay, didn't go down yet because I'm going to get all it. So it's going to go down 1, then what?
Go down and then go to the left 2.
Go to the left 2. So hit this button twice.
Mhm.
Does that look right?
Mhm.
So it's down and then 2. Okay, let's see if we get to the S. Okay, I'm going to hit start or the go. Went down 1. It turned and it turned. What did you ask earlier? You asked, do I have to turn it or do I not? Well, this program, it turns. So it's not right, Shelby. We had a communication breakdown. Let's repair it. All right. Let's debug it. All right. So what will we do instead? Now, note where you're starting from.
Yeah, starting pointing down. So you still need to make it go to the left. You'd have to turn it to the left. And then I guess you could go forward. I
Which one?
guess at that point it would be going up too.
Because it looks like it's going up, right? But
Yeah.
really it's going forward. Oh, let's see.
Now I'm getting nervous.
Nailed it. Nailed
Should've
it.
asked
Shelby
myself.
nailed it. Right. Okay. So that's so why I wanted to take a second and show that is because live stream in a moment when they're playing with the physical robot, what are you going to do? Well, come play with this. Come play with the different mats. Go look at Scratch. Go look at code.org. I'm going to show you one more that you can do. So I mentioned the robot, your vacuum cleaner, right? That company. There's a Roomba too, but this is iRobot. So they sell these robots that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, 6-sided robots, like it has 6. Anyway, they look like this, these little 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 6 sides to it. And they also have this free program where you can do some block coding. So not Shelby, but Lizzie. All right. What this is asking you to do is draw the letter P. Okay. And you're going to drag these buttons down to drag the letter P. So how do we make it draw the letter P? I'm going to throw these things in the trash. You see these commands? I'll drag them up onto the, I'll drag these up here to get this, make the letter P. What do we have to do?
So we'll need to go, if it's starting down, we'll need to go up,
Okay, so it's got to go forward 1.
forward 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. It's going to go forward 3 times.
And then turn right 2,
Turn right 2.
and then down 2,
So then again, another forward 2,
left 2,
and then left 2. So I think that's this one. No, wait. Sorry, that's my bad. Left 2. Is that right? Is that what you wanted or no?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Okay, let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it went past the P. Then it turned all the way around and it came back. And note, it's still a dotted line, not a solid line. And we're trying to draw the letter P. Note, this function
Okay.
lowers a pen. So now if I lower the pen, all right. So we won't have to go through the whole thing, but you get the idea. So again, live stream, this would be another one you can play with. See if you can go to this website, code.irobot.com, and code a robot, okay, while the people do it here in person. Okay, one last thing to show you before I bring you up here to play with this robot, and that is this. So Jason, you coding in school, right? You're the STEM guy in your school, right? So many people have an after-school coding program, or maybe they built in the computer science standards into some of the classes already, right? Same thing with the 3D printing, actually, in the room next door. A lot of times these activities aren't necessarily related to solving any sort of authentic problem. But what I'm about to show you here in Scratch was 2 middle schoolers in the very first CAMS class, coding at middle school class in our school. And this particular middle schooler, the 6th grader, his name was Tucker, and his good friend AJ were in the class. They were learning Scratch, and Tucker's dad came to him and said, "Hey, Tucker, I work with kids who are learning communication devices, and they're learning words like go and stop and eat and drink." Can you guess who Tucker's dad is? It's me. I'm Tucker's dad. Yeah. I said, could you do something in Scratch to help the kids that are learning go and stop and eat and drink? And so this is what they came up with. We got actual kids solving actual problems, coding for a purpose, not just code to actually help somebody. So what this says is when you hit the green flag and then you hit the space bar, it says go, and then something happens on the screen. In this case, a boat goes across the screen, right? And then hit a space bar or an arrow key again, and go pops up on the screen, and you hit it again, and an airplane flies across the screen, okay? Is it the best code ever? No, but is it authentic? You know, is this the best way to teach Go to kids? No, but did it mean something to them? Yes. Could you see yourselves inviting kids to learn how to code for an actual purpose, to teach core vocabulary, to teach any sort of concept, right? As opposed, again, why do I have to be at school? I got to be there working on that code because so-and-so is relying on me to teach them Go. See what I'm saying? An authentic purpose to code, not just code to code. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn us loose. I'm going to ask people, if you'd like, to come on up here. Live stream, this is your moment. Go play with Bebot or iRobot or Star Wars. Everyone else, come gather around. We're going to, where's my iPad? Oh yeah, Lizzie stole my iPad.
I was gifted it.
Okay, come on over. Come on over. Come on over. It only connects to one. And one of the first things you do is you pair the robot. So when you have a set of these, you name the robot. Like ours are named after states. We have like Nebraska and Idaho. So when you push the little button to pair it, you'll see all the robots and you say, I want to pair with Idaho, right? I want to pair with Alabama, right? Okay. So on a very simple level, what you can do, you can just drive it around like a remote control car, right? It's just yep. Now, Yeah, it's not actually moving the iPad, although that's a setting we can change. It's moving your thumb. So like a joystick. That's, yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. See how you're just driving it around?
He's looking at everybody.
And then, yeah, the other, you've already figured out that your right thumb controls the, yeah. Okay, look at what Lizzie just did there, right? Right? Look at the language and the laughter that happened just there. But then what words can we, wait, don't move, don't move. Because what are we, what's the task? Can you get it to go around or under, right? Now we're teaching language. We're practicing prepositions, right?
There's his eye.
Ow, Lizzie, you're supposed to fall on the ground. Oh, my foot. It's,
Welcome back and
Driving over to Alex. Nope, wrong way. Wrong way.
Now, we're not really doing any coding here, but just look how much fun it is, right? And again, from an still problem solving, it's in kids have a communication device, giving directions to other people and how they're moving, right?
if you work with IT, it could be like fine motor.
Fine motor skills for sure, for absolutely. Then there's some other things too. So Shelby, look at these other tabs. So this particular, so this is just working on an iPad. So no, but hold on to that question.
Oh, you made the noise. Ooh, I didn't.
You can make different noises. Fun, right? Fun.
Gosh, my
Very
3.5-year-old granddaughter.
Y-
I got her a Wally for Christmas. She loved it.
Yeah. Well, see, this also comes with, again, I don't work for a Wonder Workshop. This particular, you look at, my advice to you is look at what robots already exist in your environment, right? Everyone hears that? Usually they come with a whole curriculum. So just like that Star Wars starts out simple, this has an app. The app's free. It's the robot that you have to pay for. It'll teach you how to get progressively more difficult, right? So right now we're just driving it around like a remote control car. We haven't even looked at the coding yet, or we're going to do that in a second. Cool. Nope. What do you think these are? There's numbers at the bottom. But they're not coding numbers. Good guess.
Oh, I can tell.
They're pre-recorded. What did they say? What was it?
New robot, blah, 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 blah.
Robot overlords or something. But yes, you can program your voice. You can program in sounds, right? All right, you got to drive it around. Let me show you. Ready? We'll try something else. We're going to level you guys up. Okay. Just give you a turn here. Okay. So now let's try some actual coding. Okay. Let's not do that one. Let's do this one. Okay. So this is called Blockly, and it's
That was not mine.
okay, so over here it says puzzles, my project, and assignments, right? There's puzzles that you can solve and it gets progressively more difficult. We're not going to do that. All I'm going to ask you to do is do my project, create new, a blank project. No, again, there's a whole progression here that can get more difficult, right? But I'm just going to choose blank project. I think I'm going to try, create down here. Yeah. Does this not look just like Star Wars, where there are stuff over on the side, you drag it around, and when you hit the run button, the robot will do it. So choose some things. Pick something over there. Start like with the drive or look. When you do that, it opens up a menu of puzzle pieces, and then drag those onto the canvas. Pick one or two and drag them around. And then puzzle pieces, they snap in, right? So yeah, you see how it's snapped in. And do a couple others. Find what else can you find and make a whole stream of them.
My aides would have a blast with this. They were listening to the time. I mean, students as well, but the adults, they would love this,
What do you teach?
especially self-contained.
Self-contained.
high
Okay.
school.
Let me just say, we put these in autism programs and ED programs, and what turned into, we have 15 minutes of social time, and the social time is like pulling, we know behaviors are going to escalate during this time. We bring in the robots, an hour has gone by, and they're like, guys, we're going to adaptive PE. We got to stop. They're like, no, robots stay. And then, okay, we got to go. We began an issue because we were having so much fun, right? When the robots come in and the coding comes in, we see behaviors go down, language go up. Right?
How many movies on a Zoom board can you watch? How many videos can you watch? I mean, they just get tired of that.
Create something,
Yeah.
problem solve
Something that
something.
moves, like an app that's tangible.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any more crafts.
Yeah.
No more glue
All right,
stick.
did you hit run? Let's see what happens. Okay, so
Yeah. I
It-
ended up
It's
doing
gonna be
more.
challenged. So the age just did it. for him.
Yeah. It's a
Uh-oh.
really beautiful craft.
You turned it into a
Look
police
left.
car. He's after somebody. Taking somebody down.
okay, it's funny you say that because that's a whole other thing you can do with this is you can have it tied to some literacy component. Imagine having letters on the ground that you're going to spell out words, or imagine you've read a story and in that story, or you've written a story with the AI we talked about this morning. And in that story, you've gone to the store and then you went from the store to the, I don't know, the gym, right? And then imagine creating in lesson picks a little store and a little gym, or 3D print it. There's my, right? A little.
Live Monopoly.
And now you're following the story. Yes, exactly. And it's driving around and coding it. But did you see what happened there? You hit run and it just followed it through step by step, right? So you could just randomly play and create things. See if you can get it to go under Lizzie's legs, see if you can hit it.
Code it to go under her.
Yes, code it to go under her legs, or set up the markers and see if you can knock. Kids love knocking things down, right? Let's knock these things
Bowling,
down.
You could bowl with her.
Oh, so I showed this to an adapted PE teacher and an occupational therapist. They're looking at it. They're like, how could we do it with bowling? And they're like, so yes, it could just be that as the bowling, but they felt like it wasn't going fast enough. And there's some speed controls. So what they did is they said, they took pool noodles and they put pool noodles and wrapped it around there to make it wider so it could even hit a larger swath. Then they're like, wait a second, we can get more speed if we get it to go up a ramp and then down a ramp, right? And they started brainstorming, like you said, the other adults started really jazzing on it. So,
I don't know if you're going to talk about this later in the session, but a lot of times the barriers for people are, well, I don't have $150 to spend on a robot. But the ideas, the concepts of this, you can do
as a person.
as a person. Right? So it's like, I am the robot, right?
Yes.
And that person has to follow exactly what the commands that are given are. And we know that a lot of times autistic individuals like to follow like rules. They like, so that's like a great opportunity where they, they're not going to, right, do that. Or maybe you don't want to involve like screen time or another, like it's one more, to get them. So you can still do that, like problem solving, like having, it with objects or with people, or whatever.
Students. Okay. So I know you're not going to want to hear me say this, but I'm going to, because I have our conversation yesterday, I'm going to tell you, when you decide to go get your doctorate, right? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to do your thesis on how many questions and how many commands do kids in programs have to answer. What you're going to find, you go and observe, you're going to find they have to answer way more questions than anyone else, right? Spoiler alert, but there's your doctorate thesis. Right? Right? 20 gazillion, right? What they very rarely get the opportunity to do is give people commands. They're often following commands or answering questions. So what Beth is saying is, okay, now these other kids, these could command someone else. They could give directions where they very rarely get to control their directions, right? So now they can be in charge, right? And give other people orders to go right, turn right. Oh, that's not right. Good, start again. All of which is language.
Yeah. And we did, when I worked at like a learning center, when I was an undergrad, like we would do like a kid would have a picture and on the other side, the other kid had the expo board. And like they weren't allowed to see, but he had to explain to him like the picture he was drawing so he could understand that like they don't like, is it on the left side? Is it on the right side? Just to get some perspective for the kids. Like, oh, you can't just say draw a circle. You have to tell them where the circle is. So like then at the end you would reveal like how similar was this picture to this picture. So they understood like to get another perspective and like to follow directions and to work together and things like
Well,
that.
and then when okay, what would you change it to? Because the point of that experience, right, is that it's really hard,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
then you go, okay, what would you say differently? Same
Mhm.
thing with debugging. Why didn't that go between Lizzie's legs? Why didn't that knock over the marker? Okay, let's fix it. Now you're communicating, collaborating. It's creative. It's critical thinking, right? It's all of those C's that we have up there. And it's fun, man. I want to come play with the robots. I don't want to
It'll be
do another
interesting 'cause
worksheet.
You're gonna find that one shining star, you know, how in every group, there's that one that just his brain is just, and nobody knew it. And he's gonna be the one that's gonna be like, or her, that's gonna be figuring it out the quickest or solving the, because they just have that, you know, that visual computer in their head. And then you're gonna find this person has a special skill set. And then that maybe that's something they can go when they get into middle school, they're gonna be encouraged to follow maybe a different pathway than they would have, you know, from a
Totally.
learning standpoint.
Totally.
It's
And
gonna reveal how their brain works.
and maybe as a pathway to employment,
Yeah.
and hence the title of this, right? Okay, let me follow that on and I get a job doing this now. It starts with playing with robots, but like Lance was saying, you know, you get it, you leave and you leave school and you get a job, right?
But what
So
was I can't remember, what was the program that all started, like, when my son's 27 now, but it all started when he was in middle school, robotics. I mean, think how robotics started. I mean, now, nobody, that it created all kinds of, people went to college to go into that type of, you know.
totally,
work.
right? I mean, Jason, that's what you're doing, right? Is your STEM. Well, tell us about what you're doing with Vex
Or
and
now they call it STEM. Back then it wasn't even called STEM.
What I do is I train teachers throughout the Southeast United States. So not one particular school, but a lot, and focus on blind schools. And what you're talking about, these unplugged activities, that's when you're not using a screen, when
Right.
you're just using your body. It's a great website called CS Unplugged that just has a whole curriculum of all these random activities you can do. And so really it's trying to combat those hurdles of like Vex Robotics. It's not accessible.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these things aren't accessible. So it's really trying to work with developers and finding out ways we can get accessible for our students.
and then maybe asking before you purchase. So when you're going to purchase these Wonder Workshop, all right, is your app accessible? Can you show us how it works? And if not, then go and look at the iRobot one and see if that's one.
Yeah,
So
I'm curious about iRobot.
and see if it is. All right, good stuff. You can play, yeah.
Because we talk about coding class, right?
CS Unplugged.
How are students graded on? How are they graded? Are they graded on their performance? Are they graded on activity, participation? How are they graded?
Well, the CAMS class in middle school, like I said, my son was the first. So the question was live stream. If you're listening along, I don't know if the mic is not great, but was what about grading? How do kids? So what I'm really advocating here for first is that we embed these not as a separate class. Like this was years ago. My son just graduated from high school. So what have we learned since then? It'd be better to do building computer science standards and computer science practice into a literacy experience in language arts than have a separate computer science class, right? And then how can we do it in social studies and language art and social studies or whatever the content is, right? Can we embed it those same principles? Because what you're really talking about is logic, right? So, but the way they did it, it's interesting. The teacher was again, this was several years ago, so grain of salt, right? Teacher was a keyboarding teacher that said, guess what? You're now the computer science teacher, right? And so she's like, okay, how do I teach this? Oh, I know how to do this. I'll get a book and I'll take them through lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. Do you remember learning keyboarding? Didn't you have a book that was like ASDF, right? And then you do the next one, same thing, right? Same. And she saw that some students were frustrated with this. And she knew who I was in the county and she called and she knew my son was in the class. She said, can we brainstorm for a second? Why are some kids frustrated? This is like fun stuff. I thought they'd be loving this and they're not. It's like, because some kids, and at different rates, and they've already been playing with Scratch at home because a family member is a computer science nerd. You know what I mean? They're already, so when you brought them back to stage 1, where they're teaching them the basic Star Wars thing that I taught you, they're like, this sucks. Why am I in here? You know? So the change that we advocated for was at the end, just give them a challenge. What do you want them to build something? Build a video game. Okay, now for you, it could be this super complex asteroid smashing game. For you, it could just be a caterpillar that moves from left to right, you know? And so to answer your, I don't actually know how it was graded. If it was like just, there was a rubric, there was rubrics. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say, hopefully the way that it's being graded anywhere is being measured against this by the standard. Have they met the standard?
Yeah.
Whatever way. So if we're in Alabama and there's Alabama computer science standards or digital, whatever it is that they're being graded against that standard, or maybe it's in, sorry, maybe it's in the math class and it's, there's a problem solving standard or whatever it is that they're being. And the idea with that standard is it doesn't matter what the activity is that they're doing if they can demonstrate that they have met the standard from that activity. And there's a whole thing out there called a single point grading rubric, which is taking the standard and that's what you're using on your rubric, not did you make the robot move 2 turns and turn left, because then you're prescribing it, right? It's like if the standard is to be able to use your problem solving skills, then it's that standard. So I'll get off my standard base grading soapbox.
Bye. Thanks for being here. Okay, we've only got a few minutes left. I'm going to show you a couple other things. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let me show you real quick, because this was demystifying and coding for anybody, right? And you asked about eye gaze, okay? So I haven't played a lot with eye gaze and coding and dragging things around with eyes. So that's something I certainly need to explore some more, but I have explored it with your voice. So there is, so I'll just go by the slides real quick and then I'll come back to it.
About employment for AAC users, like he was talking about, I mean, how would some, that have, I was just thinking about employment opportunities for people who have, more complex.
So this
issues.
particular app is called Swift Playgrounds, and it is developed by Apple. So it's built with accessibility in mind. Not that everything Apple does, but Apple is pretty good when it comes to accessibility. When they're developing apps, they're thinking, well, it better work with our accessibility tools that are in our iOS, suite. So, or iOS operating system. So what this does is an accessibility feature of the iPad is called voice control. And that's there for anybody. It has nothing to do with coding. Have you played with it or seen it? You're nodding like Is that what your son uses this or has played with this before?
No.
No. Okay. So you turn it on.
I mean, could.
He could. So you turn it on and what it does is it puts little numbers over the different things you might press with your fingers. And so what someone who uses the voice commands says, do number 1, do number 4. And by that way, you can learn to code with your voice. If that makes sense. Essentially taking the functions and putting the functions, just like we had move right, turn left. Each function would have a little number. So instead of dragging it over, it would say like move right. I'd say 2 instead, because 2 is coded to go with move right. Did I lose you? You're good. You're good. Okay. Good. Cool. And then Jason left, but I added this because he reminded me of it. Code Jumper is by Microsoft and American Printing House of the Blind. And what it is, well, okay, Chris, a lot of what you were showing, what we were doing is you're dragging things around with your fingers. You'll be able to see it to do it. He was talking about what if you had a visual impairment. So what Code Jumper does is it's software and hardware where you take these different nodes, you push them together in different sequences, and it codes it on the computer screen. So you're physically moving the things around, right? Code Jumper is $1,000 though, so you might not have that access to that. We bought one, with that end of the year funds, like we got the magic drawer at the end of the year, like it's May and we haven't used all our money yet. What are we going to buy? Code Jumper. This might also be something you talk to Ashley about getting in the loan library. It's like, do you guys have Code Jumper? Or again, American Printing House of the Blind might have however you do that here in Alabama. Your Tech Act, there's lots of different places you might be able to get one of these and have it loaned to you. Cool. So that's Code Jumper. People on live stream, there we have a chat, right? Did they experience anything with I'm going to go over to the Jamboard real quick.
I don't have anything in the chat.
Nothing in the chat. Let's check the Jamboard. I wonder if they got to play at all. Did they put anything in the Jamboards? No. Okay. Just don't want to leave you out live stream because I knew we were having a little get together. Okay, so real quick, let's just decompress here with what I said. Let's actually look at some of these reflective questions. Okay, what kind of goals do you think could be addressed with some of the coding? When I say goals, I mean IEP goals. Totally language, right?
Analysis. My kids are terrible about self-analyzing themselves.
Terrible at self-analysis.
Yeah. I like what you said, like be okay with a mistake and that social aspect of that. Sorry.
Social pragmatics, everything, right?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted you to be real careful about, I want to make sure I'm explicit about this. The robots, I'm not here telling you robots should be a reinforcer. It's not here, do this awful, terrible, crappy thing, and then you get to play with a robot. It's let's replace that terrible, awful, crappy thing by doing it with a robot, right? Does that make sense? It's designing with the robot in mind, not as a carrot that you're holding up to do something awful. At least that's my stance, right? Okay. Do you think funding is going to be an issue, or do you think you could start with just the free stuff that I just showed you, the Bebot coding, the Star Wars, the Scratch is free? What do you think?
You may need funding for, you know, these big bucks, but I feel like, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, we haven't done our certification, but have gotten budgets and funding for like STEM and different technology resources. So it may still be a barrier, but I feel like schools and counties are open. They're open to the idea.
Here's what I find when it comes to funding. That it's not so much getting the funding, it's realizing you need the funding in the first place. Like we're not thinking, oh, we should be using robots for students with disabilities. As soon as you now have that mind, now you can go find the money. There's lots of places. There's grants and there's PTOs and there's donors choose, and finding the money's out there, right? It's a different challenge getting past the mindset. That's just why I spent the whole first 15 minutes trying to establish a mindset that anyone could learn how to do this. Right? Sorry, it looked like you gave the mic to somebody, Sheila, did you? Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Do you see how this could be a path to employment for people?
So I work with vocational rehabilitation, and my job is to actually go out and I train businesses, I educate them, bring awareness to working with and employing, retaining people with disabilities. And so we're in a time now where one of the things, my mindset is, I can't keep going to a business and saying, hey, I need you to fix this job description for this person, but we need to start preparing our people with who we work with for those jobs, those opportunities that are out there. And I think, I'm just thinking like, how can we, because I don't think our commissioner will have a problem with purchasing this type of stuff if it can lead to, which I believe will lead to employment, which means that we can partner with businesses to find out what are their processes, what jobs, and then build that training around what they need. Now you're creating pipelines to businesses where you're feeding them people that can do
that they actually need, that they actually want.
Yes, this could definitely lead to employment.
Awesome.
Company, I can't think of the name of it right now, but I give you information. It's an actual, oh my gosh, they're a huge company now. They do just that. They try to pair people with the right companies. So they will do all that work for you and say, okay, this company needs these type of skill set. Then they'll connect the person with the disability. And they're an actual money-making company. They're not a nonprofit, they're not an agency, and they get paid for doing that. And it's like all done virtually. And then and there are coding, there's all kinds of stuff on it.
All sorts of different skills.
Yeah. But that's their job. And their goal is to put 100,000 people with disabilities to work in paid jobs by the year. I can't remember what year it is. I saw a whole webinar. ACL, Community Living, our federal agency, they hosted that. So it's a big thing. And right now I'm looking at a webinar going on right now that's hosted called Let's Explore the Emergence of AI Intelligence for Work Tools and for Employment. And it's put on by the Office of Disability Employment Policy,
Exactly.
the Office of
'Cause-
Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. I mean, they're doing it all the time.
So that's really the next thing is,
Yeah.
could you use AI from the morning discussion to start your code and then the kids or the adults tweak it from there? So that's kind of the next thing that's coming, the next skill set coming.
ODEP is doing it, Pete, all those big.
So we got to get, I think what I'm hearing you say and you reinforcing it is we got to get kids these skills now, sooner than later. Let's not wait. Right?
Yeah, because we can't continue to, my thing is, we can't continue to
Say, hey, kid want to do this. Those jobs that they want to do are not going to be here tomorrow.
Right.
You know, so we need to start preparing them for what the business is, what they have and what they're trying to hire for.
Love that. Love that.
Intellectual disabilities. I think that's missing piece in a lot of in any area in the disability world. People with intellectual disabilities are always never have a seat at the table. It's a huge crisis in our country. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And if no one is teaching them or telling them ideas, they're just going to pick. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So it's our job, whether you're ADRS or any other or company, look for the companies that are progressive in understanding people with all kinds of disabilities, including people with intellectual disabilities, and, you know, recognizing that and open up your doors. You know, don't put them in the same kind of jobs over and over again.
Drop the mic right there, Sheila. Just drop that mic.
Huge advocacy. They've solved that problem. They are doing it, but it's not happening with some of our
Not
other
every- yeah.
populations.
We have work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Did this demystify it for you? Are you gonna now? Did you feel like in an hour now you feel like you're leaving here coders, right? You can now code. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.